Remember this face? She was one of Spotlight Magazine's 30 under 30 playwrights to watch. We watched, but where'd she go?
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about a Netflix film called The 40-Year-Old Version. Not to be confused with 40-Year-Old Virgin. Completely different film. That is not the one that we're talking about today. There is not a typo in the YouTube title or wherever you're watching this. That is the one that we're talking about, the version, 40-year-old version. So we are going to get into spoiler territory here. So if you haven't watched it, go and check it out on Netflix and then come and see what we have to say about it. But let's go ahead and jump right into this. So this film is essentially kind of similar to talking about what it is, kind of like similar to the 40-year-old virgin in a kind of way, because like the 40-year-old virgin is about that one's about a guy who hasn't gotten laid by the time that he's 40, and this movie isn't about that per se, but it is about hitting 40. It is about like, what does your life look at 40? What do you do when you're 40? What are the dreams and hopes that you had getting to 40, and where do you go from here? That's essentially what the whole idea of the movie is. And in this particular story, we follow a playwright who is working as a teacher right now, hasn't had a produced production since she was in her 30s, or I guess before 30s, because she was a part of this whole thing where it was 30 under 30 and people to look out for. But in the last decade, she's like 39 now, about to turn 40. She hasn't actually done anything of note in her feelings. So now she's teaching. She's teaching like plays or stuff in a class in high school where they don't take it so seriously, and there's like people that want to mock her and stuff like that. People are getting into fights in the class and stuff. But I mean, this one part I like about the movie, that you actually find out these kids are actually pretty cool. But in the beginning, they seem like real jerks. So anyway, except for one, Rosa. That's my girl. Rosa's a real one. But yeah, so, and essentially what ends up happening is that she gets an opportunity to possibly meet somebody who could produce her play and her, like, for something that she wants to do in a long time. But as it turns out, this guy likes to do very stereotypical stuff. And if you guys know me, I'm not really big on that either. So that was also, that resonated with me as well. And she ends up choking this guy out. And when she chokes him, she ends up she feels like she has to find a new way to kind of live and figure out life. And for her, that opens up the possibility of being a 40-year-old rapper. So that is the drop. That is the idea of the movie. Cheryl, tell me a little bit about what you thought about it.
Oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack here. First of all, I'm going to remind you to speak into the mic. Second of all, I just had to take a moment to do that because you're just like coming in and out for me. Mm-hmm. But this was such a good movie. I enjoyed it. Like, I really didn't think I was going to enjoy it at first. I think at the very beginning, I was like, oh, here we go. It's an art film. We're going to be, like, super, getting into the, not the experimental, but, it's black and white.
Yeah.
It just feels like one of those, like, artsy-fartsy kind of things, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be a good movie, but it's going to be one that, makes you think. There's going to be a lot of symbolism and stuff like that. And it was definitely very artsy, a little bit of, experimental, and stuff like that. Thank you, Playmat, for your commentary. But there's just like, I don't know, it's like the character, it is the commentary, it's the way the commentary is presented, but it's also, it's almost like another one of those simple stories that is just surrounded by good storytelling, like great decoration, and like it's just jam-packed with a lot of good, interesting, and entertaining things. And the more I watched it, the more captivated I was, and the more I was like, okay, I actively want to pay attention to every second of everything that is happening because of how interesting it was. And it wasn't even just that, it's the way that it was shot, it's the way that it was put together, the way it was edited, and like the characters were all very good and interesting. I loved the students. Actually, when I was in high school, I did theater, and it gave me some nostalgia there because I remember, being one of those brats and, being like that oddly creative and coming up with some really weird stuff. And the teacher just being like, okay, I grew up, guys, but all right, we'll do what you want to do because, this is your show. And even just remembering having that kind of, buddy relationship with my theater teacher.
Right.
So, like, I feel like that was pretty accurate for me. And theater is therapeutic. It really is. Because you get to explore a lot of things. And I think that we kind of got to see a lot of that development. Because it's not just about, her and her character being 40 and everything. There's a lot of commentary that goes around with it. And
sorry, 12 Angry Men, my all-female cast of 12 Angry Men.
I know, right? Or wasn't it
There's also an all-male cast of Steel Magnolias.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
so
wasn't
good.
like a woman directing that or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And what was it like? What's his name? That producer wanted her to like help him with the Harriet Tubman musical, and I was like, oh, good grief! Like, I can just like see her eyeballs rolling so hard. And then there was also just like the whole thing of gentrification and how like she has this really good story, and he was like, no, but we want to see who's doing the gentrification, and we're just like, but we don't need to see that. It's it's like how
you want to see the struggle.
Yeah. And somehow like they made this whole show about the relationship between black people and white people when it was just supposed to be about the struggles of like black people in Harlem.
Or just having a business in Harlem.
Yeah, and just like having, that story, that one story to tell became two stories to tell and how they're connected to each other. And like, and everyone loved it. And I was like, okay.
Right? Yeah, it's, so part of the reason also why this spoke to me specifically is because of the fact that I am also like, we're both creatives. We both went to school for this kind of stuff. And I actually had moments when the stuff that I write, which tends to skew towards like, sci-fi and fantasy and things like that. And, sometimes there are messages, sometimes there's not. Sometimes I'm just wanting to write something that's cool. And I've had people come up to me and say, hey, so what is this? How does this reflect your experience as a black man? Like, where's the racism? Where's the struggle? So would you say because of the fact that you're black and had problems growing up in Georgia, that's the reason why this character is like this? And I'm like, no, I just wanted to write a cool character. And so the fact that she is like, I just want to tell a cool story or a story that like means something to me, and they're like, well, let's put all these other undertones. Let's like make it so that it's the hood, and that like there's the struggle and there's gunshots and everything else like that, and the white people are coming in and they're messing everything up, and she's just like, oh my gosh, that's not what I wanted. So I kind of liked that they were addressing that, where she is this person that she's a creative that just wants to tell a story that has some messaging in there, but is not so like heavy-handed, and also not trying to reflect an experience that she didn't have. And this person who is not a part of this same culture tries to co-opt that story to turn it into an experience that he believes is the experience that happens for people in these situations, and is more interesting to see because for him, that's all he knows. So that element of this as well is something that very much spoke to me.
Yeah, so the image that I can get out of my head is the image, I think you know what I'm thinking of right now, about how he her friend, what's her friend's name? The Korean guy, Art. No. Archie. No,
was it
Archie?
Archie? That's what it was. Archie. Yeah.
And how he convinced the producer to and they were like in the middle of an argument too, and then you get this like, and it was, so you know how like the movie is black and white, so they're having this argument, and it's a black and white film, and in the middle of the argument, they insert this clip that I won't say what it is, but you can watch it. Play Matt, please. Well, let me do my thing.
You told me to calm down.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, you can tell him to calm down. That's okay. But that's when I was like, wait, what did I just see? And I had to rewind it. And I was like grabbing my boyfriend. I was like, watch this. And I played it again. So yes, I watched that part 3 times.
Wow.
Just because I was like so like surprised. And I was like, I don't know why I can't put my finger on it, but that's good. I like that. I like
also,
this is the experimental part that I'm talking about, because they kind of have like interesting bits like that. Not all the time, but you know, they have clips of some of like the neighbors talking, like interviews, and kind of giving their opinions about different situations and stuff like that. Right. So and their perspectives. So it's sort of you know, an interesting put together. It's like having like a voiceover without having a voiceover. You know? Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, like you were kind of saying, like they do some of these clips in color and stuff like that, right? To kind of juxtapose with the whole black and white nature of the film for the rest of it. So yeah, no, it's very well done. The movie is also very funny. I think that is one of the things that caught me off guard. I was not expecting it to be as laugh out loud funny as it ended up being. Like, I'm literally legitimately sitting down watching the film, having to pause it because I'm like, this is too great. Like, it's a lot of commentary on, it's like the commentary that kind of shows up but isn't the point, where it'll be like a passing line of dialogue or something that makes reference to something that's absolutely ridiculous. There's like this one point where these 2 old women are walking and they're talking about how they don't mention it by name, but they're talking about a play that they went to before, and that the woman couldn't sit down because she had to like keep going she had to go to the bathroom or something. And they end that whole segment by saying, "And don't worry, the mockingbird didn't die." And you know immediately what they're talking about, what they're making reference to. But it's like moments like that. They're like these passing lines of dialogue that almost feels kind of Archer-esque to me, where someone just says a thing, you get to laugh about it, and then we're moving on. That's not the point of the conversation. We're keeping it moving. The train is going forward. And so there's that, and then there's this whole story that we talk about with the hip hop thing that she tries to do. So normally in a film like this, she just makes this discovery that she wants to do hip hop, she wants to rap, and she would go, and maybe the first time she would have a bad time, but then she would stick with it, and then it would lead up to the end where she does this like really, she's gonna do like this really big like rap battle thing or something like that, but then something happens and she's not able to do it, so she's gonna back out. But at the last minute, we get her to come back, and it's like, no, you can do this, you need to be there, and then she decides not to give it up, and then at the last climactic moment of the film, it culminates into her like doing this whole kind of like rap concert where everybody is cheering for her and like they got her back. That's not how this movie goes. That is not how this movie goes at all. And I was surprised that when she goes to her first rap thing, she goes on stage, she gets high, and then she can't actually rap, and it is bad. It is terrible. It is awkward. I actually could not watch that scene. It made me feel so uncomfortable. I left the room and just listened to it. I said, I cannot watch this. This is too painful. And she doesn't go and do another rap thing until the credits of the film. basically. She has like a moment at the very end when she's on stage, but like not an official like song type thing until the credits are rolling. So that kind of caught me by surprise, and I was like, oh wow, we're not doing this. She's really giving this thing up, and now we're kind of just focusing on her kind of like trying to do this play thing and this whole idea that she's selling out to try to get this play made and building a relationship with this person, but she's not leaning into this. We're not going to see her do any more like rapping type stuff for the rest of this movie. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that film kind of took that structure that we're used to seeing in movies that usually function like this and just completely subverting it.
Yeah. Oh, I was like cringing, and like I literally put my face like into my shirt, like, because I was like, oh my god, this is so hard to watch, because it was just hard to watch. But I kind of like, just going off of what you said about, how it doesn't really take the normal turn of what we're used to seeing in a story where, like, oh, okay, so she's not going to do plays. She's going to lean into what she's good at, which is rapping. But I think that's kind of, like, the point, right? Like, she is good at rapping, but she's not good at performing. And you would think, because Dee is bringing her around to, these different rap battles and stuff like that, that you would think it would give her the courage to like be like, yeah, I can do that. I'm gonna try it again and stuff like that. And even at the end, when she gets on the stage, at the end of her play, and she starts doing it, you would think like, oh, okay, that now she's gonna do it. But I think like the thing I like about that is that it's kind of like real life, right? Where you don't just magically become good at something and start doing it. Like, you have to work on it, and you have to practice, and you have to keep doing it until you become better at it, and then it becomes a thing. And we didn't fast forward at all in her life. She's still, even like, approaching 40 and everything. You still have to go through those different things where you have to become something. You don't just do it. You have to find a way to it and become that. And there was no room in the movie for that, because that's not the point of it. So I feel like, I don't know, it's almost like a realism kind of thing, like a reality check. Like, yes, you can change what you are doing with your life, but you still have to work towards it, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think there's this other message in there that I think is really good for artists. They asked this question that I think any artist that has been doing this for as long as some of us have, and who is over 30 at this point, and not like rolling in dough, you probably ask yourself this at some point in time of like, well, what is it that I'm really doing? What legacy am I creating? How am I really even building a life? And she has this moment because she and her brother are the children of two artists. Their father was a drummer and their mother was a painter, I believe. And her mother died. That's another thing that's in this movie. Like, there's a lot of dead mothers in this movie, or the mention of dead mothers in this film.
It's a Disney
film.
Just
yeah, right. And how that affects a lot of these main characters. But she has this moment when she, like, throughout the film, her brother's saying, hey, come to the house so that we can go through mom's stuff. Come to the house. And she takes the whole movie before she finally does. And when she finally does, they come across this painting, and the painting's on the wall, and they say, what do we do with it? And the brother says, well, I don't have space in my house. And she says, well, I don't have space in mine. And they say, okay, well, I guess it's going in storage. And that leads to her having this moment of just kind of asking and kind of philosophically, like, all of that work that mom did, all of this art and things that is her legacy, just to end up in a storage container, So, like, what did she really accomplish? She was an artist that struggled. She had no money, to the point where her children were like, yeah, that's not going to be us. And she, like, made art that no one bought, and then she died. And so she's asking herself, like, what is the point in all of this? Like, I don't understand. Like, it's like nothing she did actually mattered. And, the brother tries to give her sort of perspective of saying, hey, look, first of all, she made us, and that was important for her. But second of all, she lived a life. Mom was happy. Mom got to do art. Mom got to travel. Mom got to do this. Mom got to do that. Mom got to do what she wanted to do, and she was happy. And I think that is like a message that really resonated with me, because so much about this journey can feel like it's about the making of the money. She says, yeah, mom came here to be a famous artist. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but maybe your mom also just wanted to live a life that she was happy with and that she was proud of and do the things that she wanted, as opposed to doing something she hated and having a lot of money. And so I like that the movie kind of leaned into that messaging of, it's not necessarily all about like the money that you can make. It's about whether or not at the end of your life you can look back and say, hey, I did what I wanted to do, regardless of the result. So I like that.
Yeah. And it is tough being an artist and, living that struggle. And I know you and I both have that in common where, we spent a good part of our lives exploring that.
Mm-hmm. Still exploring it.
Yeah, right?
In many ways.
That's why we're here. But yeah, I mean, I think, that's also another reason why this movie resonates with me so much. And, I almost forgot about that part with the mom that, she was avoiding her brother. And it's just another one of those things that she just did not want to face. And I think that's one of the big things about her character is just avoidance. She's trying to fit into a world the way they want her to fit into it, even though it means that it's taking apart like what was making her happy, what was giving her joy, and what her art is, right? She's not getting the chance to make what she wants to make, and so by the end of the movie she learns like, yeah, I have to let that go, and I just have to do what makes me happy. So, another thing that I wanted to say was, like, I was getting a lot of, like, vibes that, feeling from, other films, other filmmakers. So I feel like I saw some inspiration from, like, Spike Lee in there. There's a little bit of, like, I don't know if you've seen Master of None.
Yeah, I've seen Master of None.
I got some vibes from that, like some similar feelings, some similar, shots and stuff, and also some Wong Kar-wai. He who inspired the other movie that we talked about. I think we talked about Moonlight. Did we talk about Moonlight? Yeah, we talked about Moonlight.
We did.
And that was, like there's a lot of shots from like, viewing the characters from like the doorway, and there was like a whole conversation between Rada and Dee where we're looking at them from the mirror, which I thought was really cool. And like, I guess this whole thing is, this whole movie is about a reflection, and like, how she sees herself, how she's looking at herself through the lens of other people. And yeah, I mean, I thought that was really beautiful. I thought it was very beautifully shot, not like a huge black and white film kind of thing. I like to see films in color the way I see them in real life. And sometimes I just feel like it's hard to watch black and white films. I don't know, it's not exactly my preference, but I think I got over it really quick after, just, getting really roped into the story and the characters. So
and there's a part in the movie, well, actually right when the beginning of the movie started, I saw it was black and white. I was like, okay, this movie's gonna be in color by the last shot of the film. And I just called it. And I was like, I know how these movies go. And then that's exactly what happens in the movie, which is fine. That's not to, like, I think there's a messaging behind it. And you could argue that up until this moment, she only saw the world in like this kind of dull hue. And by the time when she is embracing who she is at the end of the film, that's when the world gets its luster back. Because even in the credits, when you see the credits and she's doing her song about the white boy with a really good butt, well, that part is done in color. So you can make the argument that it's not just an arbitrary choice to put it in black and white, which is what it can feel like sometimes when you watch these films that could be done in color but are done in black and white nowadays. But it actually could add to an aesthetic choice as far as to represent how the character themselves or herself is feeling in the film. So there is that. But I think overall, like, the acting in this movie is great. I love the relationship between her Radha and Archie, their friendship and how they interact with each other is great. That you get the feeling that these two really care for each other. I mean, and they're even the fight that they had, like that one wasn't hard for me to watch, but it was one of those things of like, yeah, I guess this kind of has to happen because you both kind of have these things. I don't think either one of you is completely 100% in the wrong, but that also means that you're both not 100% in the right either. And so I like the fact that they come together at the end. And I even like the fact that her students even have their own little personal journeys that they go through. There's one particular student who is the problem student in the beginning of the film who does this kind of poem, and she doesn't get any validation, but she clearly, like, you know, cared about it, and she starts acting out after when Radha doesn't give her any props or anything. And later on we find out in a conversation that, hey, if you just told her that her poem was good, she wouldn't have given you any crap. And later on she does that, but also she discovers that this girl is having troubles because she's kind of discovering who she is, and Radha kind of creates an environment where she can help with that discovery. And I like that part of the film too. I like the fact that you have these other little side stories that aren't really big. It's not like a really big point of the whole movie, but it's a nice other little element that you get to see in the film that also makes these characters feel more complete. And so at the end of the film, when she's sitting on stage and she says she embraces who she is and who she wants to be, that's important, because up until that point she had been allowing herself to be steered in a direction that people thought she should go, as opposed to choosing the direction that she wanted to go. Maybe she would have been happier being in a dingy stage with no pay and like the water leaking from the ceiling on her performers, if it meant that she could tell the story that she wanted to tell, as opposed to being on Broadway and having all this money and everything else like that. And it's high production with great sets. Like those sets like on that stage would be crazy to see in real life, you know? But it's great. Like, I think that the movie is like, it tells a great story. It's funny. It has great characters. I think that the rhymes that they use in the film are also very, very good. So if you're into hip hop, that's another thing that I would say, hey, there's some cool little freestyle type hip hop feeling moments in this film that you could check out and see and like. But yeah, like that's kind of how I felt about it. Like, is there anything else that you wanted to say that you didn't get to talk about yet?
No. I mean, just to piggyback off of what you were saying earlier, I almost feel like that about, you know, films, so that if we just get to see like what it was supposed to be like before it gets touched by producers trying to, you know, form these stories into something that just sells, that people will, you know, pay tickets to see. Sometimes like the original story might be, you know, with the intent behind it before it gets, you know, warped into something else. Like, I wish we could see more of that.
Yeah, and it's not to say that anytime we get to see it that the director's vision or the creator's vision is just going to be the perfect version of that film. Sometimes there's been plenty of examples where a producer or an editor or somebody is the reason why a film actually ends up becoming better than how it would have normally been. But there is something to be said about being able to see what a creator's vision would look like undeterred from other parties. So yeah, I kind of feel the same way as you there. So, but yeah, anything else?
Nope, that was it for me.
All right. So yeah, but that's how we felt about the 40-year-old version, everybody. Like, what did you guys think about it? Did you see it? Are you guys creatives yourselves? Did you find it inspiring, or did you find it kind of like soul crushing in some kind of ways? But whatever you thought about the film, comment below. Let us know. And we're down there. If you give us a like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl Miss Prime.
You don't think I'm some crazy old girl for doing this?
I ain't say all that.
40-year-old version.